Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. In today's video, I will be introducing our class, Math 270, and going over the syllabus for our course. Let me start by saying a little bit about the structure of our class. Our class will be taught in what is called an asynchronous manner. This means that there will be no mandatory meeting times during the semester, and all content will be delivered to you through lecture videos on YouTube. We will also be making a lot of use of our Canvas page. On Canvas, you will find all the files you need for our class, announcements, discussion boards, and your grades. You will also be submitting all assignments and assessments via Canvas. Now, what is Math 270 all about? Well, in this class, we will be learning about two different branches of mathematics, differential equations and linear algebra. Differential equations is a natural extension of calculus and is very applicable in many different scientific fields. Linear algebra is a bit more abstract, but will provide you all with your first exploration of the underlying structures of mathematics. Math 270 is truly a finale for your mathematics journey. We will learn a lot of exciting and interesting things and make use of almost everything you've seen in your previous math courses. So with that being said, let's go over the syllabus for our course so you know the policies and understand how exactly this course is going to run. So to start off with, my name is Ben Mitchell, and I'll be your instructor for the next 16 weeks for this class. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you during the term, and I'd like to just take this opportunity to say welcome, and I hope that we have a great spring term. Let's go ahead and start with some of the key information. First of all, on the top of the syllabus, you'll see here that we will be having weekly office hours via Zoom. These office hours for your class are set for Tuesdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. On the morning of each of these meetings, you'll receive a reminder email with the link to our Zoom meeting. These office hours, just like normal office hours if we are meeting in person, are completely optional, but are a great opportunity to come on and have sort of as close to a live discussion as we're able to in this remote learning environment. These will be office hours that we have each week. When we're near exam weeks and things like that, we might have a few additional times added onto this, but every week you can trust that we will have these two office hours, Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. and Thursday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Office hours, as we'll see later on, are also one of the three main communication forms we have in this class. The second communication form is direct email. My email is listed right here at the top of your syllabus. It's bmitchell@elcamino.edu. A little bit about the sort of prerequisites for this course. As I mentioned in the description, Math 270 uses a bit of everything from your earlier calculus courses. You do need to make sure that you've passed and made it through Math 220, multivariable calculus, or some equivalent. We will be using things like derivatives, integrals, a little bit of the multivariate stuff that you've probably more recently seen. We'll be seeing things like limits, a little pinch of things like series and other things from some of those courses. So it's a really good idea to have a sort of solid understanding of all of our calculus sequence before you come into this course. As you can see here, there's a description of all the different things we'll be sort of covering in this class. I'm not going to spend the time right now to go ahead and discuss all that, as a lot of the stuff maybe won't make sense right now, but it does give you a sort of general idea of what we'll be covering in this course. Let's get to the sort of required materials for this class. We do have an essential textbook for this class. The required text is Differential Equations and Linear Algebra, the 4th edition by Good and Annan. You definitely need to make sure to get the 4th edition of this textbook, as a lot of your sort of recommended exercises are chosen from this text. And of course, one of the things they do between each edition is change all the problems. So you want to make sure you have the 4th edition of the textbook. It doesn't matter if you have a physical copy or an electronic copy, as long as it's the 4th edition. You don't need a copy with any access codes or anything else like that. You just need the text itself, either in a physical form or an electronic form. To be honest, that's really the only course material you need for this class. A calculator is permitted on the exams and quizzes and other sort of exercises and things like that, but it's not required, and it's definitely not really essential to have. So you can get one if you want to, you can use one if you already have it, but it's not a big concern. Really, the only thing you need for this class in terms of materials is this textbook, Differential Equations and Linear Algebra, 4th edition by Good and Annan. Of course, being a remote class, you also need to make sure you have a device with stable internet connection and things for watching our lecture videos. You'll also, as we'll discuss a little bit later on, need to make sure you have a way of submitting your assignments electronically. For us, that basically means you either have a device where you can create an electronic copy of your solutions, in other words, like a tablet where you can write up your work directly onto the tablet, or you need a phone or other device capable of scanning your handwritten work into a PDF format. More information about that can be found on our Canvas site in what is called the Electronic Submissions Guidelines document. All right, so to recap this first page of our syllabus here, really the major things I want you guys to take away: office hours, Tuesday from 2 to 3, Thursday from 11 to 12, my email, bmitchell@elcamino.edu, and the one required material for our course, Differential Equations and Linear Algebra, 4th edition by Good and Annan. You'll also see that on the first page of your syllabus, there's this giant pile of course objectives. There's a lot of different things we'll be talking about in this course. I sort of hinted at that in the description of Math 270 being two different branches of mathematics. Again, we're not going to go over those course objectives now. It can be handy as you go through the term to look back over here so you sort of see that you're really learning what you're supposed to. But for now, let's go ahead and move to page 2. On page 2, at the top, there's a list of student learning outcomes that sort of combine and put together that giant list of objectives. We won't talk too much about that right now. Let's go ahead and instead focus on the grading policies. What are the expectations? How are you assessed in this course? How is your grade determined? Well, we have sort of 4 categories, each that get a percentage breakdown of your overall grade. What that means is that since we're using a percentage breakdown for grades, you don't need to worry about the points for each assignment. It's more about the percentage breakdown overall of your grade. So what are those different categories or groups there? Well, you guys, during the course of this term, will have 4 quizzes, 3 midterm exams, 3 what we call take-home exams. Obviously, being a remote class, all of your assessments and stuff are taken home, but these take-home exams are the sort of name we would be using if we were meeting in person, and 1 comprehensive final. The 4 quizzes make up 20% of your overall grade, the 3 midterms make up 30% of your overall grade, the 3 take-home exams make up 30% of your overall grade, and the comprehensive final makes up the remaining 20%. We use a standard grading scale as depicted here. One thing to keep in mind with this grading scale is we're not going to be offering any sort of extra credit assignments. This is your entire list of all assignments for the term, though you will see as you begin to work on the quizzes and midterms that there are generally a few extra credit opportunities on each assignment, but there will be no overall extra credit assignment at the end of the course or anything like that. Let's talk a little bit about each of these categories here. So first, quizzes. As mentioned, there will be 4 quizzes during the term. When working on the quizzes, feel free to discuss them with your classmates. There'll even be a discussion board set up on Canvas, so you can sort of use that to discuss the quiz, how you're approaching questions, or even ask me questions about the quiz. However, while you may discuss the questions with your classmates, each of you must submit your own work. Quizzes will be due on the Fridays of weeks 3, 7, 11, and 15 by 11:59 p.m. So already here, and we'll see this at the end of our syllabus as well, all the dates for your quizzes, your exams, everything's already set, so you exactly know what to expect over the next 4 months. Quizzes will be submitted electronically via Canvas, so there'll be a Canvas assignment, and you'll submit your document as a single PDF file. That means, again, you'll either be using some sort of electronic device like a tablet to create your solutions document, or you'll be writing your work by hand and then using a sort of scanning app to create a PDF and submit that via Canvas. Be aware that submissions that are late or in an incorrect format will be penalized. And again, details about the electronic submissions and how to do that, recommended apps and things like that, can be found on Canvas via what is called the Electronic Submissions Guideline. All right, so there will be 4 of these quizzes. These quizzes basically give you a chance to have sort of a check-in on the major topics of each quarter of our class. The next sort of big grouping of assignments is that you guys will have 3 midterms during the term here. The midterms will be held on the Fridays of weeks 4, 8, and 12. So you can already sort of see the structure emerging here. You'll have quizzes due on the Fridays of 3, 7, 11, and 15, and then a week later you'll have a midterm. Midterms will be made available at 9 a.m. So the exam itself will be made available at 9 in the morning and then will be due at 5 p.m. That's an 8-hour window to complete the midterm. Does that mean that the midterm is written to take 8 hours? No. The midterms are written in a similar fashion to if we were meeting in person, which means that the midterms are written to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. You're getting an 8-hour window to complete the exam because I know that you guys have other classes, other responsibilities, so I want to give you some flexibility there. But do be aware, you have this window, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to complete each of our midterms. What are you allowed to access while taking your midterms? Well, you're basically allowed to access any of our course materials. So you're allowed to access your notes for our midterms, our videos, any of these sort of exercises, your textbook, any of that sort of stuff. What you're not allowed to do is discuss or work on the midterms with any of the other students in the class. So while for quizzes, it's fair game to discuss it amongst everybody in the class, for midterms, you're not allowed to discuss it with anyone in your class. And certainly, you are not allowed to discuss it with any individuals outside of our class. Midterms, just like the quizzes, will be submitted electronically via Canvas, and again, must be submitted as a single PDF file. Keep in mind, no makeup exams will be given. I'm letting you guys know far in advance of when these midterms are going to be occurring, Friday, weeks 4, 8, and 12. So the first one is a month away, so you have plenty of time to sort of shift things around, but do be aware that these dates are pretty much set in stone here. If one of these exams doesn't go particularly well or some unforeseen event causes you to miss one of these exams, one exam score can be replaced by the final exam score if the final exam score is higher. So we're not dropping a midterm score, but if one midterm doesn't go particularly well or one is missed, then you can, if it's better for you, make use of your final exam to replace that sort of poor midterm score or that missing midterm score. Once again, it's very important to make sure that your submissions come in on time and in the correct format. Submissions that are late or in incorrect format will be penalized. All right, what do these midterms sort of focus on? Well, the midterms focus on the major topics and ideas from each quarter of our class. You'll notice that I keep mentioning each quarter of our class. That's really how we divide our class up. We're really breaking our class into 4 quarters, each for 4 weeks, and each of these midterms focus on the midterm 1 focuses on the material from weeks 1 through 4, midterm 2 focuses on 5 through 9, and midterm 3 focuses on 9 through 13. So these midterms sort of focus on each major section of the course. Finally, we've got these take-home exams. Following each of these midterms, there will be what we call a take-home exam portion. The take-home exams will be due on the Fridays of weeks 6, 10, and 14. So you have a couple weeks following one of these midterms to go ahead and complete them. Take-home exams will be due by 11:59 p.m. on the day it is due. So you'll notice that the submission structure for take-home exams is more similar to quizzes in the sense that you have them open for several weeks and you have until the end of the day on the due date to submit it. For take-home exams, similar to quizzes, you're allowed to discuss the take-home exams with other students in the class, but once again, you will need to submit your own work. For all of our assignments in our class, you cannot discuss them with individuals outside of our class. Take-home exams will also be submitted electronically via Canvas and once again must be submitted as single PDF files. What is the difference between these take-home exams and the midterms? Well, the midterms, again, are designed to sort of be done in a shorter span of time and focus on really the main ideas of each section. Usually the midterms are a bit more computational in nature. The take-home exams are the more theoretical parts of our course. This is maybe where we're doing things that are applied to real-life situations or are more proof-based, more theory-based. The take-home exams give you guys a chance to work on something that maybe requires a little bit more time, not necessarily to solve, but a little bit more time to think about. The last piece of your sort of grade will be determined by your final exam. Our final exam is a comprehensive exam, so it will cover everything from our course. I think that's fitting because, as I mentioned, Math 270 is sort of a finale of all your mathematics experience and your journey. So the final exam is really the finale of the finale. It gets to go through everything that we've discussed and make sure that you're really comfortable with all the major aspects of this course. Our final exam is the only thing that isn't happening on a Friday. It's actually happening on the last day of our class, which just happens to be Thursday, June 10th. So on the very last day, we'll have this comprehensive final. Final exam, similar to the midterms, it will be made available at 9 a.m. However, you have all the way until 9 p.m. to complete the exam. Just like the midterms, you have access to your notes, our other course materials. However, you are not allowed to discuss or work on the final exam with any other students in the class, or discuss it with any individuals outside of the class. Your final exam will also be submitted electronically via Canvas, and once again must be submitted as a single PDF file. So there we go. Those are the 4 categories that sort of determine your guys' grade in this class. All grades will be sort of kept on Canvas, so you can always sort of see how you're doing and everything and be aware of your progress in the class. Once again, all your sort of grade will be determined by these 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, 3 take-home exams, and this 1 singular final exam at the end of the term. All right, let's go ahead and move on to page 3. So with page 3 here, we just want to talk about some general requirements. A lot of this stuff we've already sort of mentioned about how the class runs, but I just want to highlight it again. And I also want to point out some important dates, specifically important dates that are true for all classes at El Camino in the spring here. So first of all, keep in mind that all the lecture materials will be presented through videos posted on YouTube. That's what I mentioned at the beginning as an asynchronous course. There are no mandatory live lecture meetings. Instead, you guys can watch the videos at your sort of own pace. I will be putting up schedules that give you a recommended pace so that you're keeping up with the material, but it's your choice when you want to sort of watch those videos. All the videos necessary for your class will be found on a playlist on my YouTube channel titled Math 270 Spring 2021, so it should be pretty easy to do that. I'll update you guys very regularly about what videos have been posted, as well as a schedule of what you should be watching. Associated with the lecture materials are suggested exercises. For this class, that's a mixture of exercises that I select from your textbook. That's again why it's so important to have the 4th edition of this textbook, as well as some that I've written so that you get used to the style in which I write questions. As you can expect, it is highly recommended that you do as many of these problems as possible to make sure you're comfortable with the topics and concepts presented in the videos. Second big thing to keep in mind here is that all the documents necessary for the class will be found on our Canvas site. So this means things like the suggested exercises, meaning the lists of questions from the textbook, as well as the ones I write, you'll find on there, the quiz documents, the review guides for the exams, and all other sorts of supplemental materials will all be found on our Canvas site. When the Canvas site is open, definitely make sure you go around, navigate through some pieces of it, and just get comfortable with how we've set up our Canvas site here. Canvas will also be used to keep track of your grades, provide a source of announcements. You'll get a minimum, at least 2 announcements a week, sort of telling you at the start of the week what you should be working on, and then sort of a midweek reminder. And it'll also host our discussion boards. And we'll talk a little bit in just a moment about those discussion boards. Third major thing here is, again, as mentioned, all the assignments we'll have for this class will be submitted electronically via Canvas as single PDF documents. There's a document on your Canvas page that gives you some recommendations for how to do that electronic submission, and some apps that are out there for scanning handwritten work into a PDF format and everything like that. Definitely make sure you follow those carefully. Certainly, if you have any questions about submitting work for this class, let me know as soon as possible. I'm more than happy to help you guys with that, but you don't want to save that until the actual due date, because then by then it might be too late to get things sort of in order. But if you ever have any questions about how to submit things for our class, always feel free to reach out. Let me know as soon as possible. Let's talk a little bit about communication, how to ask questions, how to get help here. Since our class is completely online, there are sort of several ways to ask questions or get help during our term. So I want to highlight 3 things here. And I'm not highlighting these in order, in any particular order, just 3 things to really think about. First, as we've already discussed, each week there will be online office hours through Zoom. The times are at the top of the syllabus, and each week you'll receive a reminder email the morning of that office hour with the meeting link. These office hours are, of course, optional, but are a great way to have sort of the live discussion of the topics in our class that we would normally have if we were meeting in person and actually able to just discuss literally during the middle of the lecture or interject with questions. As I also mentioned, we'll always have the 2 office hours that I listed at the top of the syllabus. When we get close to exams, we might have a couple extra ones in case you can't make those. At any time, if you're unable to make one of those office hours, however you want to see what was discussed, I will be posting the slides or boards that are covered in those office hours to our Canvas page once the office hour is concluded. So even if you do miss one of those, but we discuss something that maybe you were interested in, you'll still be able to see what we wrote up about it and at least get some of the information from those office hours. The second major form of communication in our class are Canvas discussion boards. On Canvas, there'll be a discussion board for each set of suggested exercises, each quiz, etc. So the review guides, things like that. Always feel free to post on these discussion boards any questions you have. I really promote these discussion boards to you guys for two major reasons. The big reason is that if you ask a content question on one of those discussion boards, and when you get that answer either from one of your classmates or from myself, then everybody else in the class benefits from that because they'll all be able to see that discussion. The second thing is that, at least on my end, typing out mathematics in emails is pretty tricky. It can get pretty messy. But on the Canvas discussion boards, there's actually a built-in mathematics editor, so it's much easier to type out mathematical statements on those discussion boards than it is in just an email. So by posting your content questions on the discussion board, not only does everyone sort of benefit from the discussion and the answers, but also it just makes it a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to respond there. Finally, of course, I'm also available directly through email at bmitchell@elcamino.edu. Certainly, if you have any personal questions, about your grade in the class, how to approach the class, anything like that, definitely just make use of emailing me directly. If you want to ask content questions that way, you certainly can. Again, I recommend the discussion board so that more people get a benefit. But if you want to ask a content question just directly via email, you certainly feel free to do so. So, major forms of communication in this class: weekly online office hours through Zoom, our Canvas discussion boards, and direct email. Finally, a couple of campus-wide important dates. The last day to drop this course without any sort of notation on your permanent record and for a full refund is Sunday, February 28th. That is the Sunday after week 2. So you have about 2 weeks to see the structure of our class and really think about whether or not this is sort of the right fit for you. I know that remote learning is a challenge, and certainly the asynchronous structure can be pretty different than some of the other structures that are out there. So you have a couple weeks to really make sure that this is the correct fit for you. Then the second sort of drop deadline to keep in mind, this is the one where you will receive a W but avoid potentially failing grade, is Friday, May 14th. That happens to be the date of our third and final midterm. So you are able to go all the way through the course, take 3 of the quizzes, a couple of the take-home exams, and all 3 of the midterms before you need to decide whether or not you want to stay in the class at the end. Do keep in mind that if you do wish to drop this course at any time, make sure you go ahead and officially withdraw from the class. Basically, this is just reminding you that you can't really assume that you'll be dropped if you stop attending/participating. Ours is a fully online class, so there's not a really good way of telling that. So if you need to drop this class for any reason, just make sure you go ahead and officially do that on your end. The last sort of general thing I'd like to comment here is, because this is an entirely online class, it's really important to be on top of the announcements. Make sure you're comfortable with the Canvas announcements. Like I said, you'll get at least 2 of those each week, one at the sort of beginning of the week and then another one as a midweek reminder, but there might be others as well. Sometimes I'll also send out updates or just little things in your email, so make sure you check your El Camino email on a regular basis. This also goes the other way too, right? If you're ever unsure about what's going on in our class, make sure you reach out right away about it. I'm more than happy to sort of let you know or just recap the major things that are sort of going on or anything like that. Always good to be proactive in these sort of online courses. All right, speaking of sort of ways to be successful, let's talk about 4 quick cornerstones to success. A lot of these probably apply to all sorts of college classes. They definitely all apply to mathematics courses in general, but I'd really like to just sort of highlight them. First of all, keeping up with the material, rereading your course notes, rewatching lecture videos. I think this sort of goes without saying, but in this asynchronous structure where it's your choice when to sort of watch the videos and work through the things, it's easy to let things pile up, and that can be really troublesome, especially with a course like this where things really build. Especially when we get into the linear algebra portion of our course, everything builds on itself. So you really want to make sure you're not having to rush everything at the end near a quiz or an exam. So you want to make sure you keep up with the material. I'll try to provide you guys with pretty reasonable schedules to do that. You don't have to follow the schedule strictly, but I think it's helpful to do so just so that things don't pile up. You want to also make sure that you have time to sort of look back over your notes, potentially rewatch some of the lecture videos that you felt were really crucial to your understanding or that were a bit confusing. You also want to read through the textbook. I think that the Good and Annan textbook is a really strong one for our course. It's a great sort of segue from introductory textbooks to more advanced textbooks. So it is definitely a good idea to allot some time to read through that textbook. You're not just using the textbook for exercises. You really want to actually read through the textbook. It also sometimes, like especially for proofs of theorems and things in our class, that your textbook will give slightly different proofs than I do. They're both equally good ways of doing it, but it's sometimes nice to see that second perspective. Also, of course, trying as many of the associated exercises, either from the textbook or the ones that I write, is going to be good to make sure that you're practicing that and really being sort of engaged with the material. Secondly, of course, taking good notes. Remember, you're going to have access to your notes for all your assignments and all your assessments. Midterms, take-home exams, quizzes, final, everything. You're always allowed to make use of your notes. You're also allowed to make use of the videos, but it's a very time-consuming process to have to go back and hunt through the videos for exactly the thing you want. If you take good notes while you're watching the videos and things like that, then you'll find it much easier to be sort of organized and work your way through the quizzes and the midterms. Speaking of taking good notes while watching the videos, I'll mention this again. You'll see this sort of crop up a lot in the first week or two. But on all the content videos for your guys' class, in the description of the video, there is a link to the blank PDF that is covered in that video. So if you want, you can use that blank PDF to sort of follow along with what's being done in the video. So you can sort of use that to have something to fill in and stay really engaged with those lecture videos. The third sort of cornerstone there, studying adequately before the exams by reviewing your notes. There are review guides for each of the exams. You want to make sure you work through those thoroughly and ask about anything that is not sort of clear here. This is another one of those moments to be very proactive about this, right? And making sure that you're comfortable with all the things that are sort of the major topics for each section of our course. Finally, making use of the resources in our class. That means the office hours, the Canvas discussion boards, the textbook, and of course, the other students in the class. I hope you guys make use of the discussion boards to discuss with each other, or you find other ways to sort of communicate. Remember, you guys are welcome to discuss the quizzes and the take-home exams amongst each other, so that's to your benefit, right? This is pretty advanced sort of class. There's a lot of pretty theoretical material in the course, and it really helps to be able to discuss that with your peers. One thing with these resources, you want to be proactive with them. If you are hung up on something or unsure, the sooner you reach out to me or to your classmates or post on a discussion board, the better, right? Because that gives more time for the sort of back and forth nature of these things. Sometimes you're going to ask a question and you'll get the answer that you need right away, but a lot of times you'll ask a question, get an answer, and then you'll sort of need to ask a follow-up, clarify a little bit. The sooner you do that, the better it is. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next page then. So on here, we have just a couple quick things about academic honesty and our ADA statement. Academic honesty, of course, is very important here. I'm not going to go and read this word for word, but I really want to just focus on this component here. For our class, you have access to your notes and other course materials for assignments and assessments. So there's not really an academic honesty issue with making use of notes when you weren't supposed to. We're not concerned about that. I want you guys. We're not trying to focus on memorization. I don't want you to be stressed about, oh, do you have to memorize a bunch of formulas or anything like that. You have access to all of your notes while working on things. What is important, though, is that the work that you turn in is your own. So what that means is that any evidence that you submitted work that came from an outside source, especially when there's methods or approaches that are not covered in our class, will result in failing grades on the assignment. So keep in mind, you don't have to be worried about, oh, am I allowed to look back at this video or look at my notes or open the textbook? That's all fine. It just has to be that the work that you're turning in is your own. And that's really, really important to me, but it's also really important to you guys. As coming to this class, especially Math 270, this is an important class for all of you. You're all STEM majors. You're all headed down that route. There's definitely components of this class, no matter what sort of scientific field you're going into, that are really important in the future. If you're going into physics or engineering or chemistry, the differential equations is super essential. If you're heading down like computer science, biology, those things, linear algebra is super essential. So you definitely want to make sure you're getting the most you possibly can out of this class. Speaking of getting the most you possibly can out of this class, El Camino College is committed to providing educational accommodations for students with disabilities, and that means that we want to make sure that everybody gets the most they possibly can in terms of benefits out of this course. So if you have any accommodations you need, please let me know as soon as possible so we can make sure that you get that, and really we're making sure that everyone can gain as much as they can from what I think is a really, really essential and great sort of class here. Speaking also of this sort of in general, this also, it's harder when we're all online and everything, but I do really want to stress to you guys that you should take ownership of this class. If you reach out to me about things you'd like to see done differently, or if you want clarification on some of the material, or just anything that you think would provide you sort of extra ways to benefit from our class, please let me know about them, and I'll always take them under consideration. This class is really for your benefit, right? It's for you as the students to sort of learn and be introduced to these two sort of big branches of mathematics that extend so far out into so many other fields. I really want to make sure everybody gets the most they possibly can. Let's go on to the very last page of our syllabus. This is just a quiz and exam schedule. You will also see this when you open up your home page of Canvas at the bottom. This is just a reminder of all the major dates. Our structure is pretty simple here since we have 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, 3 take-home exams, and a final. So all that is sort of listed here just to say that you can sort of plan your next 4 months and know exactly when these things are coming up. Of course, in the sort of announcements and the schedules that I post, I'll remind you about these due dates as they get closer, but I just want you to always be able to sort of reference this and know when all the big pieces are coming up. Overall, everybody, I'm really excited to start this term with you all. Again, as I probably have said many, many times, this is a really favorite class of mine. It's a great end to sort of the mathematics experience here at El Camino College, and it's a great start to your potential mathematics experience in further university classes or your further STEM experiences in further university classes. So I'm really excited to work with all of you this term. As always, if you have any questions, always feel free to sort of reach out, ask about them, use our discussion boards, try to be as proactive as you can about asking questions. It makes my end more interesting too, to have questions to answer and be able to engage with you guys. So definitely looking forward to this term.